this game is 1889. It's a deep thought game. A friend of mine produced it, the physical components for the game, and gave it to me as a gift, which is, he did a hell of a better job than I would have been able to bring myself to. And it's one of the reasons that I can't do things print and play. You know, you pay, I don't remember, about 35 bucks for one of these, and which is perfectly reasonable, but the production costs, you know, if you're going to do something like this, fully laminated pieces, real board, everything, little wooden guys here, everything really, really nicely done. The money I stole out of Baltimore and Ohio. The little thin money, I hate it from Baltimore and Ohio. I may end up pushing other money back into this instead. But, you know, most people who play an XX game play with poker chips or whatever. I don't like that. But this one's kind of tiny nature of the corporate charters and everything really leads me to say, I need thinner money than normal. I don't have a set of poker chips. And I don't really like them for various reasons. Okay, so I'm not going to go as much into the rules as I go into in most games. This is basically an 1830 clone. There are some differences, in particular the terrain and the tiles are a little different, but the rest of the game almost entirely follows the rules of 1830. A little difference here. There's this brown section here is referred to as the orange section in the game. It's equivalent to the orange section in 1830, which means you can you can buy more than 60%, I think. The yellow means they don't count against your total certificate limit. There is no real brown section from 1830 in here, so that's one difference to this. The other differences, of course, are things having to do with this particular scenario on this small Japanese island. And we'll work through those together, actually. It looks to me like there's too many of these little tokens for each of the companies. He may have printed out all the little stickers and then affixed them to the discs and said, before realizing that you didn't need this many, because you're going to need one for the par value for the corporation, one for its current stock value, and then however many tokens it has available, which for this guy looks like it's 3. So he should only have 5. It looks like he has 5 extra. So I'm guessing there's about double the amount that I need there, and I'll clean the rest off if I'm correct about that. This game is playable in 2, supposedly, with the tiny board. Maybe that'll work. But also, it's got a beginner's game, which makes things a little easier. Among other things, it gives you more tiles. One of the problems people often have in an 18XX game is they can't find the tile they need. I'm not sure. I may actually prefer to play with more tiles in the game. With the tiny little tiles that this board has, it may actually be a big deal. So with some of the games, I pull out I use the extra tiles, or I think about pulling tiles from another game and throwing them in, but then I think, well, that'll confuse the hell out of me. But here, they've got these little tiles. They're marked beginner's tiles. There are some other changes to the beginner's game, but we'll get to that later. I'm not going to play that. I'm going to play the base game. And go look at either my or someone else's introduction to 1830 to get an idea of that. I want to go over the specific rules with the minor companies here and what they can do. So the first one is the Takamatsu E Railroad. And it has no special rules. I think it has a space. It has K4. I don't know where that is. Takamatsu, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Looks like it's over here, maybe? I see this star here. I think that means no one can build track there until that railway is either closed or in a corporation's hands. Then there's the Ehime Railway, which is going to cost 40 and has a revenue of 10. This was oh, I'm sorry, 20 and 5 is the first one. The next one's Mitsubishi Ferry, 30 and 5. And then, unfortunately, I don't have yen notes. I'm using American dollars for this. The correct amount, $7,000, very small bank. The player owning this can place a port tile on a coastal town, and it lists what the coastal towns are, but I think they're these guys with little port symbols on them. I don't have a grid that gives me the locations, so I'm not sure about that for sure. And without a tile on it already, outside of the operating radius of company controlled by another player, I don't know. The player need not control a company or have connectivity to the place tile from one of their companies. This does not close the company. Now, this can only be done, I think, if the corporation owns it. The special abilities generally can only be used that way. The Ehime Railway is 40 and 10. When this company is sold to a corporation, the selling player immediately can place a green tile on Ozu, C4. See if I can find Ozu. It's got to be up here or something. This is really hard because I don't know this terrain at all. And there's a lot of colors on it. And I don't see an Ozu and I don't see a C4 here. You would think maybe C comes this way and 4 this way, but I'm not seeing anything that would seem to indicate that. So maybe it comes up this way, or maybe it goes this way. Crap. This is going to be really tough if I can't find the locations. Ozu. Here it is. Okay, so with that, yeah, and you've got the Ehime, so it blocks here, and the person's allowed to place a green. Is this, in addition to any tile which he may lay during the same operating round, this doesn't close the company. Now, a corporation's not going to own a private company until the 3 trains are out, so the green track will be out by that point, so there's no issue there. I just was having trouble figuring out how to express that. Sumitomo Mines Railway. Owning this may ignore building costs for mountain hexes which do not contain rivers. What you're going to see is we have all these mountains here, a lot of terrain here. Now these guys have rivers in them, they'd be a penalty, but there's a lot of terrain that's going to have costs to it, is basically one of the factors of this board. The Dogu Railway. This costs 60 and brings in 15. Owning player can change his private company for a 10% share of the EU Railway from the initial offering. This is like the Mohawk and Hudson in 1830. Basically, you trade your certificate in and you get a 10% share of one of the particular railways. I don't know where the EU is color-wise. Again, it's going to be this kind of diarrhea-colored guy over here. South EU Railway has no special abilities. It wouldn't be used in a 2-player game. The number of players actually determines which miners you use. It's only an $80, and that means you can only make 160 by selling it to a corporation maximum. It's got a revenue of 20. Nothing special about it. It's kind of a big hit. I don't know what to say about that. And then we get to the Uno Takamatsu. Doesn't close when owned by a player. If owned by a player when the first 5 train is purchased, it can no longer be sold to a public company, and the revenue is increased to $50. Not used in 2 or 3 player games. $150 with a $30 or $50 revenue. That gives you an interesting choice. So this is the closest you're coming to the good old Camden and Amboy here. And it's almost as good. It's a big jump. $150, you can make $300 off of selling it. That's what its big goal is. That's what most of the big hitters are in an 18xx game, well, at least in an 1830 derived game. But it gives you this other option. Hey, if you don't want to hurt your company for $300 into your pocket, you'll start getting $50 a turn in revenue for that. That's crappy for a share, and you paid a lot for this to begin with, so I would say it's probably not worth it to do that with it. But it does give you an alternative to dumping it into a company if you maybe find that you don't want to. We've got a track manifest with all the upgrades, and you can see there's different kinds of towns and such not that some of them have. Little dots should be not seeing little dots. I think these must be little dots. The ports, these are cities. This is a little dot. So the color scheme's a little different than what we're used to in an 18xx game. And all right, let's take a look at what the two-player or what the beginning game differences are. Some of the private companies are not used. I don't think these were labeled. These are supposed to be double-sided printing, and it wasn't done. So I would probably have to look that up if I was playing the basic game. There's only a number of companies used equal to the number of players in the beginning game, which means, well, actually it's listed here which ones you have. And let's see. There's the additional tiles, and then in the initial stock round, you're not going to be bidding for the private companies. You're going to deal them out. Again, just take some of the decision making away from people. I feel like that's going to probably pretty much happen. Usually when I first face an 18xx game, I don't know what to bid on things. So if I'm going to play, which I am, a 6-player game of this, and there's going to be 6 privates, well, the first guy may not be interested in taking the cheapest private, but somebody's going to get it. We'll go through that during play. Anyway, very brief opening look at this. I'll hand out the starting money and start in a little while.